Get your stinking rat out. It's late night large.
Welcome to a late night large that got drunk, fell in the canal, and got dysentery to go with its gonorrhea. Cursing the gods of fate is me, Aaron Bliss, and having his rusty shopping trolley confiscated in the drunk tank is Mike
They'll never take my trolley.
Large. They can take your clothes, your money, your dignity, but they'll never take your trolley.
Got it in one.
How you doing, Mike?
Yeah, I'm all right. Been a busy bee of late, but I'm all right. You know, every now and again, the universe sends you a little bit of something just to
Tide you over?
yeah, that give you hope, whether it's false hope or not.
Yeah.
I mean, we can all have our own opinions, but
Keeps you,
every time.
keeps you
Yeah.
just keeps you just away from reaching for the razor blade.
Just clinging on.
Yeah,
Just clinging on. Yeah.
I'm sure you're not alone in that, Mike. And keep the faith, people, because we have to keep hope that things might improve slightly. It's not very likely, but here we go. To this week's discussion will be much more optimistic than we've had in many weeks. I don't know about you, Mike, but I mean, we're used to talking about, the latest death figures, the latest cock up, the latest lockdown, latest round of job losses, furlough ending, all this kind of crap. Finally, this last week or so, we have actually had two slight rays of sunshine, you might say, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So, number one, which is, even if other people don't agree, I think is probably the most consequential thing that happened over the last week or so, which we did mention last week that we were crossing our fingers for, is obviously the US general election. I'm just going to go to you, Mike. So when did this happen? 3rd of November. So that was last Tuesday, wasn't it? When it
was.
When the last in-person voting ballot day was. So we started getting an idea of what might have happened that night, late night. Were you watching it like in real time, or were you just like, fuck this, I'm going to bed, see what it is in the morning?
Yeah, I didn't watch it in real time. I chose to keep the faith. Great man once said, you've got to have faith. So, it was running up to it. It was, catch up date here and there, but no, I didn't watch it come in live or anything. But when I awoke from my slumber and saw, what had happened, what we'd all hoped, and I think most of us probably predicted by the end would happen, did. And I'm trying to play it down, but yeah, I was fairly pleased.
So, but the interesting thing is, Mike, is that it was not clear at all, really, the morning after, because I remember distinctly, because we've had a kick in the nuts a few times over the last few years, particularly with just on a personal level, and for a lot of other people, but some people might disagree, but with the Brexit vote, and then obviously Trump getting elected, I'm used to kind of having that, opening the laptop, getting the whichever news website it is up, and having this awful sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach from seeing what's like on the screen in front of you. Now, this one was different because I remember I did have that fluttering in my stomach, and I was preparing myself for, right, this could be really bad. and I'd literally, I'd worked through it in my head, and I was even rehearsing it. Like I was rehearsing seeing the headline, "Trump gets second term in resounding victory" or something, and I just had
Preparing yourself for it.
yeah, and I had this like clenching in the pit of my stomach. I was just like, just get it over with. And I think I woke up at a ridiculous time, like 3:45 in the morning or something, and I just thought, oh fuck, because I've obviously remembered what's woken me up. I'll have to have a check now, or I won't be able to go to sleep. So I had a quick look see, and it wasn't as relieving as it could have been. First, that early in the morning, our time on Wednesday morning, because if you looked at it, it was incredibly close, and it looked as if Trump was sort of favourite in a lot of states. Of course, what we forgot is that a huge, like unprecedented number of people voted by mail, because people in America who aren't big Trump fans have brains in their heads and didn't want to catch COVID, so probably wanted to avoid having to go to crowded polling stations, so they voted by mail. So we had this weird situation where if you checked it early in the morning, our time, Wednesday morning, it looked as if it was a knife edge and Trump was actually probably slight favourite. And then as it developed, it was like, oh, what a relief. It's just because Trump had the most in-person votes, and then gradually the tide started to turn. And I think by Thursday, definitely, it seemed relatively certain that Biden was going to edge it, not by a huge amount, but it was like he was leading in enough states and narrowly losing in states where they were expected to have a huge amount of postal ballots. That you thought, oh, okay, this is going to be okay. But what do you think about how long it took to fucking count?
Wow.
I mean, what was it? So Tuesday was their election day, and what was it? Friday or Saturday morning by the time we had an official declaration of, oh yeah, Biden can't be caught.
It seems farcical when you put it like that, but it's not surprising, is it?
I guess not.
I wasn't surprised by it.
No. Did you have people at work who were like interested in it, or did that just pass everyone by? Because I don't know about you, but like everyone that I ran into, which isn't a lot because we're in lockdown, but everyone I ran into was hugely invested in it. And I yet to meet a person who was actually wanting Trump to gain re-election. Even the people I know close to me that support Brexit did not want Trump to get a second term, because I think even if they think Brexit is going to be positive in any way, they knew that Trump being around to sign a deal after Brexit would be pretty catastrophic. So it was interesting because it was almost like this shared anxiety amongst the vast majority of people I knew. I don't know about you. Did you get that as well?
Probably not as much, but I definitely appreciate what you're saying. I mean, to be honest, the person I probably spoke to the most about it has been you. So, not really at work. I mean, any kind of talk that isn't work related, I crack down on straight away. There's none of that. No laughing.
Stand to attention when Mike's in the room.
Smiling, actually, that's reserved only for customers and stuff, like when you absolutely have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody discuss anything other than what you absolutely must do in order to do your job efficiently and effectively, really. So so as a result, not a lot of chatter.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah,
I felt kind of much the same way.
Okay.
Much the same you did, probably not quite on your level, but definitely the same way.
Yeah, I mean, I think what struck me was that people who weren't necessarily that invested in politics were talking about it. It was one of those occasions that I found.
Yeah, no, I did notice that. I did notice, there was the odd person who'd make a comment about it, and I'm thinking, I've never heard you mention a politician. I say that because, I mean, we're calling Donald Trump a politician. He is
Very true.
technically, you know what I'm trying to say there. I've never really heard you mention anyone's name or anything, but everyone kind of had their own little opinion, didn't they? Regardless of whether it was misguided or not, or what they based it on.
Yeah.
Near enough, everyone seemed to have something to say.
Yeah. No, it's I guess that was driven by the media, but it's also positive that people realised that it would have had a huge impact on people in this country, no matter what happens. Because I think a lot of people don't sort of make the connection that obviously people know that the British used to have an empire. In fact, it actually used to be the biggest empire ever. So if you're proud of that kind of thing, with the things that go on in that, the British had the biggest empire in history. But one of the aspects of our empire kind of went rogue and turned against us, kicked us out. And now they have an empire. It's not the same as our empire. The American empire is based on it's not based on sort of being inside countries and running them themselves. It's more having a military and a CIA that threatens countries to do things a certain way in the interest of American capital. And we're part of that empire. It sounds a bit humiliating to admit, but we are in the orbit of the American empire. We are now one of their subjects compared to obviously being originally their masters. And a lot of people find that hard to accept. You hear this talk about, I hear a lot of talk, particularly from people who support Brexit. It was all about pride in not, being subjugated to a foreign power. But America has always been our master. So I think what I mean is, whether or not you agree with leaving the EU, you have to accept that America is the boss, and we will have to accommodate them, if not obey every little whim that they come up with. So it was very positive, in my opinion, and hopefully a lot of others, that we didn't have effectively a demagogue fascist getting re-elected in America. Although, Mike, what do you think about over 70 million Americans, which not only is more Americans than voted for him initially, but is the second biggest vote count in history, obviously next to Biden's, who won, but the second biggest vote total in American history for someone like Trump, when they've seen 4 years of what he's done to the country. Does that concern you at all?
I think it's pretty difficult not to be concerned on some level by that. I mean, it just goes to show that my opinion of people in general, which you and anyone else that listens will be fully aware of, basically I'm right, aren't I? I'm right about people in general.
Unfortunately, you're thinking of the worst of people, particularly their intellect, has been proven horribly right in that case.
Again, shock.
It's yeah. The more I think about it, right? So
try not to.
No, I don't know. I'm not going to stay on this too much longer, but so we know that there's such a thing as tribal people. So the people who are in the red or the blue camp, and they will never change. They fight for the colours of their team, and that's it. So let's say 50 million on either side are always going to vote Republican or vote Democrat, no matter what happens. If an asteroid hits the planet, wherever, they will crawl from the wreckage and vote their team. So there's, but there's a whole lot of floating voters, and there's non-voters who became voters this time. And it just staggers me that other than those absolute dyed-in-the-wool Republicans, you're talking about potentially up to 20 million Americans saw the enormous death toll of COVID, nothing being done to stop it, saw how he treated minorities, saw him putting children in cages, saw him not build the wall that he promised to build, saw him insulting everyone, including other leaders of other nations, saw him pull out of the Paris Accord, saw him try to start a war with Iran, and said, fuck yeah, I want 4 more years of that. It's just staggering. It really is staggering. And by the way, that's not me saying, sorry, that's not me saying that Biden was an amazing candidate, because I don't think he was at all. In fact, I think he's hugely uninspiring. But that explains not voting for Biden. That doesn't explain voting for Trump. If you vote for Trump, it means you're actively wanting to elect him back to power. And 70 million Americans, having seen everything that he did, thought, yeah, that's my president.
I agree with your sentiment there. I do. I just wish I was more surprised by it.
Yeah.
I wish I was more surprised.
No,
it doesn't shock you. I mean, it shocks you to when you think about it on some level, but it doesn't shock you in the way that it doesn't surprise you, does it?
No, I'm on you. I'm with you on this one, Mike. I think you've been proven entirely right about human nature and the gullibility of some people. I mean, even if you ignore the policy things, someone who lies with every breath he takes, and yet he's got 70 million people saying, no, that's fine. I don't mind that he doesn't tell the truth at all, because I know what the real truth is, so I just ignore what he's saying, but I like what he's saying. And the mental gymnastics. But anyway, so the point is, it's a relief to, I would say, probably 2/3 of the world's population, to be quite honest. There's not many countries outside of American Republicans, although 70 million people, who honestly were looking forward to more Donald Trump. So, let's take the positives we can, because any fascist that gets booted out of office is a good thing. Whether Biden is going to be any better, well, that will come down to probably the Senate runoffs in January. But anyway, enough of the American election. So that was some positive news, Mike. And of course, the other positive news that everyone, I'm sure, is doing little jigs of delight about is the Pfizer vaccine. The news of which broke this week, 90% effectiveness, and it is currently, I believe, being mass produced and prepared for rollout as soon as that's able to happen. What's your thinking about that, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't been given have we been given a date?
I think Johnson was very careful this time not to do his usual thing of going, Christmas is saved. So I think what he actually said was he just repeated his kind of, we're hoping to get this started by December, and we're hoping to be back to normal or whatever by spring, completely ignoring the fact that he's about to go through with a no-deal Brexit, but let's disregard that. So I think what he said was he was hoping for everything to be pretty much back to normal by spring.
So I'm just wondering at what stage it'll be, or what phase in the kind of the vaccination process will things be allowed to go back to normal? Do you see what I mean? Like, what do you say? Well, we've got it now. Like, get it as and when.
Let's go.
Yeah, or is it going to be a case of, well, once we've done X amount of vaccinations, or once everyone that we've classed at a certain level of risk has been vaccinated, then the world can go back to normal and we carry on the rollout for those others and whatever. I just be interesting to see. I mean, has anything really been said about that? I haven't seen anything.
No.
No, the specifics around how it will work and how this back to normal by spring will actually happen, and what kind of stages they'll be involved in that. I haven't seen anything, but
No. Well, what I understand about how the vaccine works is apparently you get one dose, and then apparently 21 days later, I think it is, you have a second dose. So bear in mind, that's a lot of information to retain. It's not just, right, off the list, you're done. Like, literally, you have to retain those details and make sure that everyone gets them. I think it's quite exact as well. I think it has to be that period of time. So that seems to be it. So two jabs 3 weeks apart seems to be the way it works. Now, Mike, let's play devil's advocate, because like you say, we've got no information about this. So let's just say we are in charge of organising the response to this. So I'm going to throw you first, okay? Not the logistics of it, but just who would get the vaccine and at what time? In your opinion, how would you think it should work?
I was a little bit unsure where to go with that, whether to answer sensibly or not. But no, no, I don't know. I would say there's lots of things that you need to. It's tough. How would it work? How would I roll out the vaccine? So, okay, anyone that's been categorised in I think it's the extremely vulnerable now, are the only people that have been, sent their letters and told to isolate.
Right.
So for those that have been told, you can't work, despite the fact everyone's obviously been made to work and encouraged to work and whatever else, they're obviously the most in need. So I guess you would start there, right?
Well, let me jump in. Let me jump in. I see what you're saying, but I would actually put another group ahead of them. I think number one priority has to be healthcare workers and care workers.
Yeah, well, okay, I don't disagree with that. I mean, surely wouldn't you just do it like you do with the flu vaccine?
Yeah, but remember, the flu vaccine is staggered. You don't have everyone getting it at the same time. It's kind of through the winter you book people in. So that's how this will presumably work. You're not gonna be able to.
Is there no
68 million doses all ready to go and say, right, first, everyone. Well,
why not?
That's your plan, is it?
Just look, you asked how I do it. I'd have it fucking ready.
All right.
I'll get this shit organised.
Okay, let me do it this way. Why don't I suggest something, then you can tear it apart. So, So I'm in charge. I've got however many million, more million are coming all the time. So how
many million you got?
Well, let's say 10 million, and then in a week's time there's another 10, then another 10. So what I'll say is, first of all, the logistics will be completely determined by local health authorities, not by selling contracts to my cronies. So initially, that's it. So the local health authorities are in charge. So you say to local health authorities, who's on your books. Make sure that these people all get doses 3 weeks apart. Okay, here's your vaccines. Get the word out.
So how do you decide who gets those first 10 million and where they go?
Oh, right, okay. So initially, the priority would be, like I say, because healthcare workers are at the greatest risk because of the viral loads they're exposed to. Frontline NHS workers would be prioritised. People working in care homes would be prioritised. So they initially would get the first doses. No one else would get a look in. They're first. Once they run out, that's great. They're done. After them, it would probably be secondary NHS workers, and then, like you say, the most vulnerable other people. So that would be people in elderly care homes, disabled people who've been asked to shield. And I guess from there, if you're talking about prioritizing beyond the people who are working with sick people or are sick people themselves and vulnerable people, if you're talking about priorities beyond then, it would probably, I personally initially would prioritize it based on sector that they work in. So I think we should reward people who work on the front lines, as have been keeping the country going. So that would be shop workers, delivery drivers, people who kept the country going initially. They should be the next priority to get vaccinations. And then finally, you would then go through age groups, I guess. So the people most at risk of death would then be, so, you know, the over 55s, then maybe, I don't know, the very young. And then basically and then the people with health, you know, minor health conditions. And then eventually you'd get to the lowest risk group, which would be, you know, people aged sort of 16 to 45 with no underlying health conditions. They'd probably be the last to get vaccines. But I don't know about you, Mike, but I think the most worrying thing is, and we can't really ignore it, is that there's a growing and pretty significant proportion of people who are believing in anti-vaccination conspiracies. I don't know if you've seen this. There's a lot going around on the internet.
I've seen a bit.
Because I've seen it even on some local pages. I've seen some really slow-witted people, you know, acting as if, you know, that they understand, they know the plan, and they say, and they like sarcastically saying, "Oh, I'm really going to trust a government injection." To which there's just like the collective slap of people's palms against their faces. But how would you deal with those? Go on, Mike.
Look,
If what I'm saying, Mike, is if so. By the way, I am not in any way advocating this. I'm just saying this as an idea. Not that I advocate it, because I don't advocate for the government to violently force people to do stuff. But let me compare it to, you know, conscription. When people were conscripted to the world wars,
right,
and you refused to go, either because you were genuinely a conscientious objector or you were just a coward. Either one of those didn't matter. You know, you'd effectively be jailed. I believe people got in prison. I mean, we're talking about men because women weren't conscripted to fight, but men would be imprisoned if they conscientiously objected or not. So I'm just saying, is it a similar thing? Because if people,
no,
you don't think it's a similar thing at all?
no.
I know it's a bit extreme comparing it to war, but what I mean is it's a situation where we're supposed to be all in it together, each protects the other kind of thing.
No.
Okay.
No. I think if the vaccine works, then if it doesn't work, don't fucking roll it out. Don't waste everyone's time. If it does work,
yeah,
then it's still subject to that person's choice, as far as I'm concerned. Because if the vaccine works, then they're not putting anyone other than themselves at danger if they don't.
It doesn't work like that.
Yes, it does.
No, I've read about this. It doesn't work like that because
It does.
No, Mike, it doesn't. Because apparently people who are vulnerable. That, by the way, there is a small proportion of the population. I don't know if you realise this. I read this from a medical professional in a comment section, I believe. But there are people who, for medical reasons, cannot have vaccines.
Okay.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
So we're talking about, okay, it's a very small proportion of the population, but anyone who doesn't take a vaccine is a potential carrier of that virus and is threatening anyone who is unable to get a vaccine through health reasons. Do you think that's fair?
Um, I don't, but at the same time,
Do you think, okay, so do you think there should be any consequences to people who refuse to have the vaccine?
no,
You don't think they should have their sort of activities restricted in the short term or anything?
no. The people that you're talking about, that can't have vaccines,
Yeah,
my understanding is they are people with extremely diminished
yes,
immune systems anyway.
that's right.
So it's you know, someone with I don't want to compare it to it. I try to avoid it, but I'm going to for this sake of this argument. People with the normal flu, right? Who they pose okay, maybe not just as much risk, but you know what I'm saying. They pose a risk to the people with no fucking immune system, and you saying that normal flu vaccinations should be mandatory then, or any other vaccination for that matter.
Well, some
I don't
vaccines,
have.
some vaccinations.
I don't have a flu jab. I don't have a yearly flu jab. I could catch the flu. And
No, but you've had presumably tetanus, whooping cough, diphtheria. You know,
I
all
had the shit when I was a kid. Yeah, I've had nothing
yeah.
since.
Is that not compulsory? Is that not a mandatory thing?
I'm not sure it is. Can you choose for your children not to have them? Obviously, you can't choose as a child.
Possibly.
I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
I think you can choose for your children not to have them. I'm not.
Okay.
We'd have to look that one up. But I think
Yeah,
there is a way you can
okay.
choose.
Yeah, you're probably right. Okay, going back to your point though, Mike. It's an interesting point. I don't agree with it for the following reasons. Number one is flu has been proven not to kill on the same level as COVID. Okay,
No, I agree. I acknowledge
COVID
that.
has a
100%.
significantly higher fatality rate.
Yeah,
The other thing is,
not the highest fatality rate of any disease ever known to
no,
man, is
of
it?
course it doesn't. It's not the plague, but you know, it has a significantly higher fatality rate than flu. What was the last year that flu killed 50,000 people? But yeah, okay, so that's the first point I make, and the second point I'd make as well is you don't get a yearly flu vaccination. I do. The reason being that it's not considered dangerous to people like you, but it could be dangerous to people like me. You can still get it, but you would have to pay for it because they don't consider that the overall strategy of keeping people healthy is worth the cost of vaccinating everyone because it's not really a threat to you. Okay. The difference with the COVID vaccine is the COVID vaccine will be available and free to everyone. So what's your excuse? Your excuse for not getting a flu vaccination is, well, I don't want to pay for it. And the fact that I'm being made to pay for it means that it's not considered vital for me anyway. But the COVID vaccine is being provided for free.
Right.
Because they consider everyone should have it. Who can have it, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can get a free flu jab. I can actually get one through work. I don't need one.
Oh, okay.
Some sort of through work I can get one. I'm not going to.
Too hard, aren't you?
No. I'm not going to. I mean, okay. I don't really think I need one. But also the other reason is I understand there's not a completely like unlimited amount. So,
Yeah, that's a fair enough.
there is obviously a potential that me having one means someone else who might need a little bit more
Yeah, I see what
to
you
wait or doesn't get one, or
Okay, so part of what you said in your argument was you said that it's only people with compromised immunodeficiency that would be at risk. Who are you thinking? Who are you thinking falls into that though? I didn't know what you meant. You said, "Oh, it's only going to be."
no. You mentioned people that can't have vaccinations, and I said, in my understanding, that those people primarily are people with like autoimmune diseases or whatever, or don't have.
I think your understanding is correct. Yes, but
That's all.
but you realise that that's not just like children with special conditions,
No,
or
I'm aware.
or people with.
I know someone.
So, yeah, so
That
I mean,
can't take vaccines.
yeah, so you know that would include, for instance, people who've had cancer treatment, which could be, you know, far more people than we expected to be.
Okay. People who've had certain cancer treatments can't have vaccinations.
Yeah, I believe anyone who's had things like chemotherapy and radiotherapy
Can't have vaccinations at all, not just for a period of time.
Well, I thought it crushed their immune system effectively having those treatments. Because you're blasting yourself with radiation. Isn't that what ruins the immune system?
Yeah, I didn't know that it was like. Obviously, whilst you're having it, and I guess for a period of time afterwards.
Yeah, I mean,
but I didn't know that was like forever. Then you have no immune system forever now. I didn't know that.
No,
I'm not sure that is.
I'm not sure it's forever. I mean, the thing is, yeah, we're not medical professionals. Please, if anyone is medically trained, I'm just throwing it around because logically, I hear something, I don't know the parameters of what that means, but obviously, people who have recently had and potentially longer term are in remission for cancer, having had chemotherapy or radiotherapy, will not be able to take vaccines because of their compromised immune system. So,
look, the point is, I'm not endorsing anyone choosing to put anyone else at risk of anything, COVID or not. Clearly, that is like wrong.
yeah.
I'm just, I don't think I'd go around putting people in prison that don't want to have a vaccine. I just,
Okay, I'm going to ignore you being a penis and suggesting that I was talking about rounding people up and putting them into dungeons for not having it. But it was.
Well, you did use the example of like people going to prison for not going to war.
Yeah, okay, that was an extreme version. What I said to you, Mike, was, do you think anything should happen to them? Not, do you think they should be rounded up and taken to a gulag? Anyway,
no.
You made it. No, you made your point clear. And to be fair, I don't completely dispute your point. It does make me angry because these people have obviously been fed misinformation. In the days of the Black Plague, they'd have probably disregarded basic hygiene and sanitation, saying that it was witchcraft or something.
Yeah, no, I don't agree with like scaremongering about conspiracy theories or whatever. I don't agree with that.
I think no. I mean, you probably, to be honest, for once, this doesn't happen very often, but for once, you probably sound more reasonable than me, because you're being very liberal and you're trying to find consensus amongst everyone and say, if those idiots don't believe that a vaccine works, or it's dangerous, or it causes us to become Godzilla or something, then just fuck them. The rest of us will have it and protect ourselves, and fingers crossed they don't come into contact with any immunocompromised people.
Whilst I don't agree with scaremongering around conspiracy theories and things like that, do you think that anything they say has any credence at all?
Are we talking about what?
Which are you eating? How unprofessional!
Sorry. Are we talking about the anti-vax thing?
Disgusting. Yes. Or are you too busy concentrating on your food? Yeah. Hey, you ain't got to tell me.
Yeah.
You ain't got to tell me that. have you?
I thought I'd found a soul brother in terms of any time. By the way, you fucking idiot! I've seen you eat 2 or 3 occasions when we've been recording shows.
I know. I was waiting for you to catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think there's any credence to anything they say?
I think it's like a lot of things, Mike. I don't think everything they say is fairy tales. I think some of I've seen some of them. Now, don't get me wrong. Not trusting the government is a good thing to do. That's generally a good state of mind. But to go down a rabbit hole from not trusting the government to vaccines are secret poisons and they're making our kids autistic and I've got no medical training, but did you know all the poisons that are in vaccines? Just give your head a bit of a shake. Like it really upsets me, Mike, because I see people who are really anti-government, and I think we could harness that energy to kind of seize the government and use it for the greater good. But instead, they just go down these silly little detours that don't lead anywhere. And then I have tried communicating with anti-vaxxers online before. Sometimes if I'm in a certain mood, I'll just take the piss out of them. But I have on occasion treated them like with respect, so because you don't change anyone's mind if you don't treat them with respect. So I have at times kind of said to them, why do you believe that? What's the logic there? Why do you think that? Kind of trying to flesh them out. And unfortunately, generally, no matter how nice and respectful I am, I tend to get the response eventually of something along the lines of, you need to wake up, do your own research. Like, what the fuck does that mean? It's the kind of thing Trump would say.
Yeah. I mean, do your own research sounds like a pretty cop-out response when if you've actually asked them for like the fruits of theirs. Like, okay, so you have done your research, I'm assuming, based on what you're saying. Just saying, explain to me what you found.
That's exactly it. I approach them in good faith because I think these people are potentially dangerous, but they are still human beings. They're obviously, they don't, they believe they're doing the right thing. So you've got to approach them in a respectful way and get them to explain what they think is so dangerous. What's the problem? And then to have them like fob you off with, 1 or 2 of them have shared links. I've seen links before, and they're bogus websites. They're websites that are like, they pretend to be medical sites, and it takes about 5 minutes to kind of debunk any kind of credibility of the sites. It's just basically crank sites for people who, I was a doctor and I got out of the business when I saw all the stuff that was happening, particularly with vaccines. And then you 5 minutes later you do a Google search and you find that the person who's writing on the website has been struck off as a doctor. You don't strike off doctors because they're anti-vaccine. You strike them off because they're guilty of malpractice or misinformation. So that tells its own story. But yeah, that tends to be how far I get with them. I don't know if you've ever spoken to anyone who has those kind of beliefs.
Not really. No. By the sounds of it, I'd probably be more open than you would generally. As you said, I think your default is very much just to take the piss. I think you've done that probably. I suspect probably a lot more than you've taken your more diplomatic route and gone, okay.
Yeah.
I feel like that's probably a small percentage of the time where you've actually done that.
Right. What Mike? You're making me out to be a monster now. What? The only thing
you did that yourself.
No. Listen, when I say take the piss, I do not agree with trolling or personal insults. So I don't do that. What I do
No,
is I will take the piss out of someone's point of view. I will never take the piss out of them personally, right? So because then you've lost the argument. You start throwing personal insults, which by the way happen all the time in reverse, because they know they don't have an argument. That's the problem. But what you do, yeah, depending on what mood I'm in. If I think this person doesn't have a brain in their head, I'll take the piss. If I see that they're very like serious, they generally seem concerned about it. I'll try and engage with them, to just make them see that not that I'm right and they're wrong, but that what they believe in is like built on really like quicksand, that they haven't really, that it's like they're kind of hooking themselves to a cult. But, can you ever really change someone's mind over the internet? I don't know.
So you think it's okay to take the piss out of people's beliefs?
Oh, yeah. I think. Does that come as a surprise to you?
That's an interesting can of worms.
No, Mike, my personal. By the way, I'm talking about general opinions, not
Beliefs?
deep found.
Belief?
Okay, if someone I wouldn't take the piss out of someone's deeply held religious faith unless they were communicating it in a way where they were forcing things on other people. But if it's just simply that they come across as a little bit creepy and misled, leave them alone, because that obviously means a lot to them, and you shouldn't, because that's obviously their whole narrative about who they are. That's a very deeply held belief about themselves. So you should never attack someone on that basis. But if someone is venturing an opinion that is, my opinion is, if you have an opinion or a belief on something that isn't a deep part of who you are, you should be able to defend it. If someone has a shot at you, you fucking answer them, and then you have a debate.
No. We're not talking about being able to defend it. You're saying they should have to defend it because you're taking the piss.
Again, Mike, you're acting like I just go around taking the piss out of everyone who disagrees.
So you take the piss out of people's beliefs, and you think they should have to defend them.
You're deliberately mixing up beliefs and opinions for your own ends. Don't listen to this guy. He's like a fucking grinning Donald Trump. That's a Donald Trump tactic.
There's no need to go there. Hang on. What happened to like not being the need for personal insults? And
all right, sorry.
That's what people resort to when they don't have an argument. And what's going on with that?
Sorry, Trumpty Dumpty.
Okay.
So let's forget about this little squabble for a minute, Mike. Just going back to the vaccine.
Yep.
Just before we round it off. So if we go back to the vaccine, everyone in large land, this is very positive. Everyone's probably got a little bit more hope inside now that even if Christmas is ruined, next year we'll gradually be able to, go back to what we enjoy doing. We'll go to the theatre, the ice hockey, the football, the pub, the snooker hall. We'll be able to mingle with strangers and with friends, and everything will be a lot more positive, particularly by summer next year, we hope. So that's good. Let me bring you down a little bit, Mike. So we've heard that there's this great vaccine. Knowing what we know about how the government has dealt with every other aspect of this pandemic, do you trust them to be able to distribute this vaccine effectively?
No. In a word. I mean, no. That's. I mean, to be fair, I mean, I touched on part of the reason why when I asked you how you would distribute that first 10 million, hypothetical 10 million, as in, okay, so what type of person you want to give it to, but then how do you distribute that between the local authorities that you say they each manage? Do I trust the government to get whatever route however they choose to do it, whatever route they go down? Do I trust them to get it right? I think to trust them implicitly to do something like that, you'd have to be pretty naive, given recent events. But I'm not saying you should necessarily distrust them and just assume that it's all going to go wrong and it's going to be awful and it will never happen properly and it will never be distributed and no one will ever get it and everyone will die. Or, you know, I'm not saying you should go to that extreme.
No.
But you know, is it likely to be the perfect rollout? No. But also, in fairness, would it be fucking hard to roll it out in a way that most people will consider perfect? Also, yes, it would be hard. So,
So would you say, Mike, that what we expect of the government, really, not, you know, try not to hope for too much, but what we expect is them to learn lessons from cock-ups they've already made? Would you?
I think that is a perfectly reasonable expectation. Yeah.
Good.
But I think we know better.
No, we do. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's very dubious whether it will go smoothly. But you know, if it goes mostly smoothly, that's good enough, I guess. So
We'll take that.
That's positive. The only other thing I was going to mention, Mike, again, is something I read about the vaccine. So they're saying, you know, oh, we could have it here even by mid-December. Not that the vast majority of people would see it anywhere until 2021, but that, you know, they were kind of getting hope. Oh, we could have it in the country by this time. Now, the vast majority of it will come after December. And apparently it needs to be stored at like negative 70 degrees or something on the way over. And obviously, because of that, it probably has a relatively short shelf life. Can you think of anything that might hold up deliveries of things in January?
I thought you'd always find a way to like bring up Brexit, don't you? Everything comes back to it somehow.
I mean, I'm sorry to deal in realism here, people, but at the moment, if we just to make it very clear, crystal clear, by the time we do next week's show, so I think it's about a week's time, is the absolute deadline to agree on even a skeletal deal to keep things running, not smoothly, because it's not going to be smooth at all. There's going to be more paperwork, there's going to be delays, there's going to be more tariffs. But we could try and reduce that slightly by getting some kind of a deal. If we don't strike any kind of a deal in the next week, I mean, don't take my word for it. There's going to be, you know, there's huge lorry parks in Kent. There's going to be traffic jams day and night in Kent. There was a story today which said the government hasn't arranged portaloos, so they expect basically bottles and bottles of piss and bags of shit all over the lay-bys and hedges around there for truckers who have been waiting for potentially 2 or 3 days. Not to mention the fact that it will slow down and add cost to food, medicine, and of course vaccines. Now, things like vaccines and particularly radioactive isotopes used for cancer treatment, these have incredibly finite shelf lives. You know, we're potentially talking about some of them, I think, are as little as like 12 hours. So if you don't get them from point A in, I don't know, Belgium, say, to point B in the hospital depot or whatever in London to be stored properly, you've potentially spoiled the whole batch. That's no isotopes. They're gone. So this is a huge problem around the corner. And it staggers me that the newspapers aren't running it. Well, I know why they're not, but they're not running it day and night to let people know what's about to happen. And I'm just saying that the vaccine is great news, but that's probably going to be the least of our worries come January at the moment.
We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, that attitude is not going to get us very far, but
I don't know what else we can fucking do.
No, I know what you mean, Mike. Yeah, I just for anyone who's listening who's not aware of the absolutely catastrophic state of affairs that's going to happen in January, please, I don't want to come back and say I told you so. I'd rather that Johnson actually got his ass moving and just for the good of the country got some kind of deal done so we could just try concentrate on recovering from coronavirus instead of recovering from the sanctions that we put on ourselves. Anything to
Fair
add, Mike?
enough. No, I think you've covered that.
Oh, I've covered it already.
I'll cover you in a minute.
In COVID.
Yeah. No, sorry, shouldn't joke. You shouldn't joke. It's not
No, we
right.
shouldn't.
But yeah, no. I think we've covered it. We spoke about what we wanted to speak about.
Wasn't it
You
good?
got
to have a
your
late
usual
night
digs in.
large? Wasn't it good to have a late night large full of, well, some positivity for once? You know, we're not just whinging that everything's shit. We finally got
Yeah.
a little bit of optimism.
Yes, there are now when I believe actually people probably need it more than ever.
Yes.
I genuinely believe that there are actually things to be optimistic about, to help you to see that light at the end of the tunnel, or the, you know, every cloud and all that. So yeah, good, positive, bit of positive, inject a little bit of positivity into things.
Yeah.
We're all going to be fine.
And yeah, the last thing I'll say as well, by the way, is the last thing I'll add is people, time is running out. The isolation period, the period where we don't have to see anyone else, etc., is running short now. There is a vaccine. Therefore, if you want to learn a skill and have lots of time to practice it and perfect it and show off to your friends, knuckle down now, because early next year you're going to have to do all kinds of social occasions and you're going to go drinking with your mates and stuff, and there'll be no more time to dedicate yourself to that new skill. So do it now.
Do it now.
Yes. And until next time, I guess we will grow you next week. If that's all we got to add, Mike.
No, that's it.
It is.
Just subscribe, like, tell your mates, leave us a comment, slag him off, do what you need to do.
Yeah, leave some anti-vax shit underneath the video.
Tell him why he's wrong. Tell him why he's wrong, please.
Right, we'll see you next time, people.